Yeah, that'd be great. Sorry, I just ate salmon. I do. You think these?
Or parking garages.
Oh, where? Right, you said yesterday that just.
It's only a building on top of it.
No, it's no big deal.
You got the churn happening. Are we ready? You got the churn happening. The Syracuse Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for November 21st is now in session. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from the October 31st meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second to the motion?
A second.
Are there any modifications or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Abstentions? The minutes are officially adopted. The board will now conduct the public hearing on today's agenda. First, the applicant or the applicant's representative will state the reasons for the requested variance and present any material or documentation which is to be considered regarding the proposal. Next, persons wishing to speak in favor of the proposal will be given the opportunity to address the board. Then persons who wish to speak in opposition will be allowed to address the board. Finally, the applicant or representative will be given the option to make any closing arguments or comments to the board. Following the public hearing this afternoon, the board may make a decision on the application. The board may also decide to hold its decision until the next public hearing. If the hearing is closed, no additional information will be allowed into the record except for information that the board may request. That information will be available for public review at the zoning office in 1 Park Place, 300 South State Street. The staff will now introduce the first application.
Thank you. We have one new business item this afternoon. It's a use variance V-24-22 to permit a food and beverage retail type land use located at 273-75 South Midler Ave. This lies within the R1 zone district, and we'll ask the applicant to come introduce the project.
Good afternoon, and thank you for all coming out today.
Please state your name. Anyone who
Yep.
comes, please state their name and address, please.
Absolutely. I'm Craig Polhamus. I am architect for this project that's before you today. I work and live at 114 East Genesee Street, Fayetteville, New York. I've been a Syracuse area resident for 45 years, an architect for 35 years, and involved in historic preservation community for 30 years. With me today are the following people that will be speaking in favor of the application. Paul Nojame, the owner, who flew in from Seattle through the bomb cyclone last night to be here today. Paul is the executor of his Uncle Jimmy Nojame, who was the previous owner of the property, who died last year. Stephen Skinner, a developer who is both passionate about preserving the local history of Eastwood and has restored many properties back to their former glory, including the Palace Theater. Caitlin Wright, who is both executive director for the Land Bank and president of the Eastwood Neighborhood Organization. Corey, our baker, who will be operating the proposed bakery and is currently operating his bakery at the regional market. There's also other neighborhood folks here that support the application. So, the location is a 1.2-acre corner lot at the corner of South Midler Ave and Glen Cove Road. It is a concrete block and wood frame structure that was constructed before records were kept for the area, as far as I can determine. It is one of the earliest buildings, and I believe was constructed specifically to function as a corner store with living space above for the owner. We've carefully measured the structure to document the existing conditions, and the floor plans are part of your packet today. So we're here to promote a project that I think is fueled by passion and love. A love of preserving the rich history of Eastwood, love of a walkable and vibrant neighborhood, love for preserving a family legacy that started here, love for the scale and character of this building and its proposed reuse, and love of fresh, healthy baked goods that could be created here. The building was built before the area was even part of the city of Syracuse, when Midler was just a dirt road, long before zoning was established. It may well have survived as a corner store had it not been for the death of Rose, which would have allowed its continued use as a food and beverage location. As mentioned, we are looking for your approval for a use variance. We respectfully request that the former use of this existing non-conforming building be allowed to continue as a food and beverage establishment, while the existing former use as a butcher shop and grocery store predates the current zoning maps. The nature of this building as a corner store fits both the scale and character of the residential district. The existing building has been vacant for over 20 years due to the death of proprietor Rose, who ran the store for about 40 years after the death of her husband, Francis. The building has remained just as it was when Rose died, and the Nojame family wishes it to remain intact as a testament to her memory. The desire is to retain its historic character and retain both the look and use of its new life as a neighborhood bakery shop. The existing street parking used by the former store and is currently underutilized exists. Let me share a photo. This here is Jimmy Nojame, and from circa 1950, and a photo that was just recently taken this month. So you can kind of get a sense that we're talking about a time capsule here, one that we like to preserve into the future. The location, I think, is ideal for the intended use as a corner bakery. This is a walkable neighborhood, just 2 blocks away from the James Street commercial area. It was built as a store, and to convert it to a residential single-family use would, in my opinion, require demolition and new construction, which is economically infeasible. So, focusing on the items that you wanted us to in the application: reasonable return, demolition cost for this 3,269 square foot building would be about $18,000, while single family construction of a replacement 2,000 square foot single family home would be about $460,000, which is far above the selling price in the neighborhood of $250,000. It also explains why the building has been vacant for so long. I should add that the proposed plan provides a reasonable return on investment, since the building is already organized for use as a store. The work that we're intending would focus on providing handicap accessibility and a handicap restroom on the main level, which would need to be added, as well as some fire safety modifications. There's unique circumstances here. The existing building, as it presents itself, is fitting in both its scale and character as a corner store, typical in residential districts like this. To reuse this historic corner store retains both the look and use in its new life as a neighborhood bakery. The neighborhood character. The existing building, as it presents itself, is fitting in both its scale and character, typical in a residential district. The next item is self-created hardship. The property owner's death created this non-conforming use. The intent of this application is to continue the character and purpose of this historic building. The building has been sitting vacant for 20 to 25 years, and will continue to remain that way due to the extensive renovation work required to turn this into a single-family dwelling. Again, the cost would be over and above what you could sell such a building for in this neighborhood. So want to also address, we had the opportunity yesterday to get comments from the Department of Transportation. If you look through that, they were very complimentary about the project, but at the end they kind of let loose their requirements. They want to see granite curbing along North Midler. I do have a site plan here. Apologize for the low tech. Last time I was before you was pre-COVID, and I didn't know you had this wonderful technology. But this is a revised site plan. Again, what we're showing is their request for 5-foot wide sidewalks. So we will demolish the 4-foot wide sidewalks, replace them with 5-foot wide, and match up to the corner, which has been recently modified for accessibility. There's odd even parking along Glen Cove Road. Actually, I think the sign indicates that it's not odd even, but regardless, it was there when there was a store, and it will be plenty enough parking for a neighborhood bakery. The existing garage would be utilized for the delivery truck that would also be used for picking up fresh ingredients to be used in the bakery. And the patio will be part of an accessible ramp to bring people up to the bakery level. Let me see, did I miss anything else? We would remove the paving along the right-of-way and install the granite curbing, as I mentioned. Also remove paving along Glen Cove Road and replacement of the sidewalk. Whatever was paving will now be grass, and you can kind of see we're creating some sidewalks into the building at each of the entrances. Beyond that, if there are no questions, I'll yield to the next presenter.
So we will hear from the baker? Is that?
What's that?
Now, this building, is the baker buying this building, or is this going to be rented? What is the story on that?
Yeah, actually, Stephen here, the developer, will probably walk you through the next steps.
All right.
He will be purchasing this because the owner lives in Seattle. It's really the only way to make this happen. So, Steve?
Stephen Skinner, owner of the Skinner Companies, and I live at 2226 James Street. Some things will say 2649 James Street because I live at my office. Not really, but just, yeah, no one needs to check there. I don't live there. But anyway, so I live right in this community. I've raised my family here. And yes, Corey, who is, again, known as the Breadhead Bakery, would call this the bakery. Is also able to present as well. But we love sharing stories. We are probably a little bit of an unconventional developer. We love our community. And so over the past 25 years, my wife and I have literally made it our mission to just one building at a time, try to tell stories, try to rebuild the neighborhood. We're really big on not tearing down things as much as possible to preserve things. So from the Eastwood Plaza, which has been known as the Sacred Melody Plaza in the past, all the way down to the Palace Theater, many of the buildings in between there, we have restored those properties, continuing to restore them, and bringing life back to things. However, I cannot live in every single property, would not make it functioning. And the cost nowadays associated with even just having a small business, many small business owners cannot, they just do not have the funding available to be able to do a project like this. So we use our real estate brokerage firm as a way to help purchase these properties, and we will, a labor of love, we will develop properties as we meet great businesses such as the Curd Nerd or such as other businesses that are throughout Eastwood people have heard about, the different coffee shops and the brewery. So we met Corey, and in the meantime, Eastwood has been begging for, to me at least, for 10 to 20 years, could we ever have what I would call a legit bakery? Someone where you would see flour on their apron, someone sweeping their sidewalk, greet people. We're trying to create a village within the city, and yet many times, what are people going to shop? Where are they going? So this building, for about 20 years, I got to know Uncle Jimmy No James, who again now is deceased, but for 20 years we had grapes and we had talked about this property, and obviously very sentimental. He did not want to sell it, but obviously I was fortunate enough to get to meet the family and his heirs and his nephew, multiple nephews, and this is one of those things where I shared my story with them and said, would you give me the honor? Would you give me the honor if you don't have a use for this property to let's see if we could do something special here? And just happened to be coinciding with meeting Corey and said, would you be interested in having a brick and mortar store if we could ever create this? So that is sort of the idea how this all came about in the last 6 months to a year. But obviously, everyone else has to make the final decision, but that is our goal. Our goal is to create something very special, something iconic that's very low key, but has a specific use, something that would make people literally really enjoy coming to Eastwood. And also the Midler corridor to me is very important because up until recently, there's just really nothing to go there and not having a use there. So it's been really an eyesore. So this is something where I want to keep telling on stories and continue to tell the story of Grandma Rose. And I think she ran it for her over 50 years by herself. So that's a little bit of what we want to do. Any questions?
I guess one, there was the love of walkability. I guess I'll disclose a couple things. I grew up a block from this house, so my dad still lives in the house on the 200 block of South Edwards Ave. So I think the building has been empty my whole life. It's amazing. It's like exactly the way it is, in my opinion. And if I could have had a bakery, I would put in that much.
That's awesome.
And Corey is like, I almost feel it's like insulting to call him a baker because it's like he's an artist, like his passion for the food. And he's like, I'm like one of his people who buys a lot of stuff. So like, if I could get him to live a block from my current house, I would like be bending over, which maybe you are facilitating this a bit. But I do think the walkable Eastwood is like, I love that identity. And I also am like a person who thinks that parking is the death of cities in a lot of ways because you're actually going to walk. So, and I know there's some terms here that require, that like are suggestions of the staff if we were to allow for the use variance, which deal with that kind of thing. So I think this is showing, and like a personal pet peeve is the paving of, let's call it the snowscape, but the green space between the sidewalk and the road. So does that currently show Glen Cove having parking in that space?
It's on here. It's on here. We've already updated it.
It's updated, so it's not there.
Yeah, we've agreed.
Now
to,
it's green
we've
space
agreed to
on-
all the terms.
Okay, you agreed to all the terms.
We've agreed to all the
Midler
terms,
and
and we've-
Glen Cove, there's whatever it is, there's no parking on the road.
And we've made all the changes already.
Okay, I just wanted to be,
Bike racks and the sidewalk and the curbing and the grass. I'm all about that as well. Yes.
bike racks are fronting on Midler? The bike racks are front, okay. Great.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
No, absolutely. Any other questions? Again, we're fortunate enough to have the No James family, which obviously, I don't know if Craig brought any of the photos, but literally when you go in, just like you would, if anyone grew up where your grandma would take the ruler and put it on top of your head and do a little pencil marking and put the name of the kids there, down to that, it's still there inside the house with all their names and all the dates of whatever it's the 70s and 80s. So we're going to try to preserve some of those history pieces there, but down to the original walk-in cooler is still there. The chopping block. So for us, this is not about just tearing everything out and just, painting everything over. It's about how do we meticulously think about how do we tell these stories, because a lot of the history is still down to the beadboard ceiling is still intact. So and you get an idea. That's a current photo of it right there. So you get the spool. You'll see the spool that they wrapped the packages in. It's in both photos. So you'll see the spool hanging right there. It might even be the same spool. Who knows? But literally down to that. So this is a very important project.
I don't know if you can see this, but it says Paul 484, which would have been 1984.
Oh, Yes.
But you talk about the walk-in cooler. The bakery is going to need ovens, so where would the ovens go?
So I would have Corey comment on what he needs, but we have already, Craig has a plan putting together, but Corey's very, and I don't want to speak for him, but he's very modernized in his approach. And so even when it comes to things, I don't think his things that he needs, and this is not, again, in my opinion, I'll let him share, but this is not a mass producing, this is not like some type of big bakery where you're going to have cube trucks backing up and everything. This is really a 1 or 2 person operation. He's, as Tim said, he's an artist. He's a true artisan and like a Renaissance man. And that's why my daughter and my wife have a lot of gluten intolerances. They can't do it. They can eat his bread, probably the only bread that they can eat. So hence why my daughter goes and spends all my money every Saturday at the market.
The sourdough.
Yes, he's amazing. So any other questions I can share or can step down? Okay, excellent.
I just want to point out to the board that this is just the use variance application for which you're going to apply the use variance criteria, that it will have site plan review after the variance is disposed of, if it's positive.
Is there
Hello, my name's Corey Bruce. I'm the proposed baker of the project. Right now I'm operating something called Breadhead Bakery at Brady Market, actually. We're renting from another part of the Nojam family over on West Street in Gifford. So yeah, I've been baking for the better part of a decade. I'm a local boy, born and bred in Baldwinsville, and I grew up on Columbus, Harrison, Geddes baked goods. Yeah, it's always been something of a dream of mine to work with my hands with food. But however, I was distracted after college with pre-med, if you could call it a distraction. Only spent, 2 solid years of my parents' hard-earned money doing it before I went to culinary school. Another distraction for probably only a year at that point because I was a really impatient kid. I wanted to get into the industry. I wanted to do more than I was able to studying. So that's what I did for the better part of my 20s. I worked in bakeries and restaurants around the country, figuring out there was a lot people weren't doing, mostly because of margins, which is one of the reasons, as Steven said, we keep a very tight ship. So it's myself, lead baker, and viennoiserie, meaning croissants, and one pastry chef. She's from France. She is a few years younger than me, about a foot shorter, and I don't mess with her. Her parents own bakery for the last 30 years in France. She grew up in the industry. She brings a level of professionalism, but also, I'd say, respect that for many years in the city, it was hard-earned. We're a melting pot, as most places are in the country, but especially with the Eastern European community and the recent refugee resettlement programs in Syracuse. There's a lot more acknowledgement for this style of baking, which across the state, especially in Syracuse, is underrepresented or not represented. And what I mean by that is not just the sourdough or the natural leavening element, which makes it fully digestible for those with gluten sensitivity, gluten intolerance. An uncle of mine actually has a part of his, not to be too graphic, but a part of his intestines removed, and he can still fully digest the nutrient packages of the grain. It's besides that, though, it's the old world element. It's the third place element of a bakery where you could walk in and you could talk to a baker and ask them, why was this week's bread a little bit sweeter or darker or softer than last month's? And we could tell you it's about how much rain was going on when the grain was ground, or that it's a new wheat lot. It's a completely different varietal. It's the same way you want to go to your third wave coffee shop and ask, what's the fresh grind? What's the bean that was just harvested? And in a lot of ways, coming from the restaurant industry myself before baking, it's the last, I'd say, frontier, the last wave in, the new American approach to cuisine. I mean, for a while, we've had places like the French Laundry and Noma and 11 Madison Park around the country promoting organic, fresh, sustainable ways to harvest and treat the farmer. But bread, grain, wheat, especially since the Second World War, has been completely overlooked. It's not something that's seen as maybe as necessary to be high price point or as really, flashy. Brown bread may seem burnt to some people or not like your standard Sara Lee sliceable potato bread. But what you have is an actual nutritious product that, if bread is the staff of life, our staff has been broken, splintered, or, completely absent for the better part of the last 50 years, definitely my parents' generation. So what we're trying to do, at least what I've been trying to do with my style of baking and what I've been lucky enough to hopefully be able to do here is just be that third place en masse 3 more days a week. Because as Stephen said, or excuse me, Craig, we do sell to the Syracuse Regional Farmers Market. We've had a table there for the better part of 6 years, but we also have wholesale relations with grocery stores, restaurants, cafes in the area. This production space would allow us to not only start milling our own grain, something that no other bakery in the state is doing, but also provide that accessibility, whether it's in just talking to your baker or being able to get your pistachio croissants and baguettes 3 more days a week. Yeah, that's...
You gotta stop. I haven't had my lunch yet. It's too much, okay?
But yeah, so I'm well aware that there are plenty of bakeries around. There are bakeries that do croissants. There are bakeries that do bread. What we're trying to do is entirely different, as evidenced by the fact that we've been operating in a city that's pretty bakery laden for 5 years through the pandemic, pre-pandemic, and we're getting stronger every month, every year. Hope to be able to do that in a more walkable location like Eastwood provides, especially looking forward to starting a family myself and not wanting to, have to deal with driving and parking and all
Let
that.
me interrupt you. Now, your plan is, are you going to have table service?
So-
people would have coffee?
Yeah,
or
we're
in this
not looking
place?
to be like a sit-down bakery space. We're not looking to be what Cafe Kubal or the Cracked Bean or other locations like the Curd Nerd up the road are offering with their sandwiches and their provisional groceries. We're more going to be, you can walk in, get a pastry. Maybe there's a table or two inside. But because of the, as you asked before, because of the equipment we'll require, we won't have too much space in the inside for sit down. I mean, maybe a seater or two in the same outside in the nicer part of the year. But what I'd like you to envision is, a pizzeria. You'd go in and you see the person tossing the pies, you see the oven, you're able to ask them, I want this on that. It'll be a very open floor plan. We'll have...
You'll be making pizzas in this place?
Well,
Will this become a pizza shop? I guess that's my question.
Right. I've made pizzas for staff. I don't intend to make pizzas for sale. I've made pretzels for staff. I don't intend to make pretzels for sale. What we make, despite a lot of pushback from people at the farmers market, hasn't changed much in the last 5 years. We make brown bread with whole grains that we mill ourselves. We naturally leaven it. We make croissants with fresh local cultured butter and Pittsford dairy. We use as much sustainable local agricultural food systems as we can because it's not being done. It needs to be done if we want to have any kind of, chance with food systems and the organic and the grass movement moving forward. But no, we're not going to be trying to take pieces of the pie from other people's business because we've got enough business making our own pie.
Any more questions?
Just to touch though on the equipment usage, right now we've got a 20-quart Hobart mixer, which is all we intend on using. We've got a single electric stone oven, so it's a non-need for a ventilation system. There's no gas offset. It's probably half the length of that table. Maybe a foot taller, and at any given point we may get a stackable system, so there's one right on top of that. And besides that, again, a stackable convection oven system, but again, electric, non-gas, non-need for ventilation or heavy piping through the building. Besides that, the walk-in cooler fits all of our needs. We may put a proofing box, a proofing cabinet, if you're familiar with that, basically the size of a fridge. But we don't intend to have deli display cases or long refrigeration cases because all of our products are fresh and usually warm out of the oven. That's it. Anything else?
Any questions?
Cool beans. All right.
Would you like to hear from Paul No James? He's the current owner of the property.
Sure.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Nojame. I live at 8803 42nd Avenue, Southwest Seattle, Washington. Had the privilege of flying through my first bomb cyclone last night on the way over to Syracuse, but this is worth it. As the owner of the property, and some of my family are here. My side of the Nojame family has never really wanted to ever get rid of this property in this community. My grandmother and grandfather started there in the late 30s, early 40s. My grandfather died, and there's a lot of stories and a lot of history and a lot of meaning here for us. And so we aren't really looking to offload this to a Dunkin' Donuts or some crazy thing like that. Because our story really has always been about community. I remember as a child sitting on the stoop or working behind the cash register or running into the freezer to get a soda pop. So many different people coming in to my grandma's store, my Uncle Jim's store, and buying stuff and talking and staying there. And I never really understood as a small child, like, why are these people not leaving? Right, they're just there and they talk, and it was like, the list of characters just was immense. And so this morning I went and had a cup of coffee on the stoop and sat next to my Uncle Jim's photo and just sat there and watched all these cars just drive by, both ways, just right past the store. And no one was there. No one was walking around. There was no space to make a community. And so the store never had tables and stuff, but people chit-chat. And I just remember walking across the street. There was an old lady who couldn't go over there. I'd drop her off her eggs and her butter. Or there's kids coming back from school. They get their candy. And at my Uncle Jim's funeral 2 Augusts or Julys ago, the priest that said the Mass, he as a child would go to the store, get his candy after school, and talk. And so it's really important to us to make sure that Eastwood has this space. And so what we're trying to do is to make sure that the legacy of this, I don't know what you want to center or linchpin or a part of the fabric or whatever metaphor you want to use for community building and quality of life and walkability and just a sense of belonging for this neighborhood stays intact. Right? The building sits vacant. It's not being used. It's becoming an eyesore. Do I want it torn down? No. Does my grandma want it torn down? No. Does my Uncle Jim want it torn down or my father? No. We want to do something with this. We want to keep that vibe, that life alive still, because that's what's been there for almost 100 years, 80 years in between there. So that's why I flew through a bomb cyclone, right? Not because it really affects my life in Seattle, Washington, but it's because it affects people's lives in this community. And that's always been the most important thing in my family. Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor of the proposal?
Hi, I'm Caitlin Wright. I'm here with my Eastwood Neighborhood Association hat on. I'm the president of the Eastwood Neighborhood Association. I live at 369 Forest Hill Drive. ENA is a membership organization, and we have nearly 1,000 members who live or work in Eastwood. And this nonprofit has been around for 20 years advocating for things that will improve quality of life for Eastwood residents. And we think that this is something that will improve quality of life for Eastwood residents. You talked about how Eastwood is such a walkable neighborhood, and we need to do more to enhance that, and I think that this will go a long way to do so. And you heard everything that these gentlemen just said about building community, and we think that this project will contribute to that in a positive way. Thank you.
My name is Gary Frank. My wife and I live at 820 Glen Cove Road. I've been communicating with her during this by text, and she's very excited that that the building would be converted to this kind of use. We support the project. We miss Jim No James terribly. He was a great neighbor. I didn't even mind, snow blowing a sidewalk every winter. And we look forward to seeing what this will do for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sue Straub. I live at 200 Nichols Ave. I'm exactly 2 blocks from this location, and I look very much forward to having a bakery, I walk every day. I either walk or drive by this location, and it would be great to see this happen.
Doug and Maureen Anderson. We're at 912 Glen Cove, just kitty corner from where we used to talk to Jimmy over the decades. We've been in Eastwood 43 years since we've owned the house. We think this is a wonderful thing for Eastwood. Gotten to know the No James family and the care that they've taken, because we don't want a drive-through thing with Dunkin' Donuts and this and that and the other thing, but a walkable neighborhood. And the kind of bread that you talk about sounds incredible. So the walkability, this wonderful possibility of things that, I mean, he's talking about food that America has forgotten how to do. So thank you for the No James and for all the care, Steve and Craig, that you've all taken with this. So the Andersons say, let's go.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Hearing none, is anyone to speak against the proposal? Hearing none, we'll close the comment period. And now maybe we have a motion. And first we'll do seeker.
Has everyone had a chance to review the short EAF Part 1 that's contained in your packet?
Yes.
And is everyone familiar with the short EAF Part 2 that's contained in your packet?
Sure.
Does anyone believe this project will have any moderate to large impacts under seeker?
No.
Because you do not believe there will be any moderate to large impacts, I recommend you vote to issue a negative declaration under seeker and complete the EAF Part 3 accordingly.
I make a motion to make a negative declaration on seeker.
Is there a second? Karen seconds. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? No. Okay, passed unanimously. Now maybe have a motion to approve or disapprove the variance.
I'll motion to approve. I lost my place here, but I think I can do it.
And I'll second.
Needs to read through the criteria.
Oh, sorry.
Otis, were you going to,
That's
before
right.
the motion, were you going to make your disclosure?
Should I state?
Just make your disclosure.
Do you
that
love
we
chocolate
discussed.
croissants?
Yeah, I just have to disclose the fact that I do business with Mr. Stephen Skinner, and my business is located in Eastwood. So, but I feel that I can still adequately weigh in on this because there's no other relationship or remuneration or anything else that would prohibit me from doing so.
And as a citizen board in a small community, that seems reasonable, right?
Excuse me?
I said as a citizen board in a small community, that seems reasonable. Thank you for disclosing.
That seems reasonable.
He's required to disclose.
I know, that's
Yeah.
why I said thank you for disclosing.
Yes, so that's why I
all.
had to disclose that.
Okay.
Staff just wants to point out that if there's a motion to move this forward and approve, that you recommend conditions in your packet. There are 8 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going through the criteria as well, but just so we don't leave that out.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve based on the conditions provided in the packet. For reasonable return, I think it was proven that demolition and the cost of new construction is crazy and not feasible. For the unique circumstances, I think the passing of Miss Rose is a unique circumstance in itself. I think for the neighborhood character, the public testimony speaks to that. And also this is more along the lines of what the property was built for. And I am forgetting one of the tests, which,
And don't forget the staff recommendations or whatever. The recommended conditions.
oh, that's right here, okay. Yeah. And as far as it being a self-created hardship, again, I think the passing of the previous owner plays a role in that. And yeah, I think all were satisfied.
Do you have to?
I would just add that I think this project is a fantastic project to pursue. Having seen what has happened in the Eastwood neighborhood over the past 20 years, and anything that Mr. Skinner is associated with will be absolutely outstanding, and I know that he's going to meet and exceed every criteria here.
May I have a vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain?
Did the motion, you had added the
Criteria.
conditions, right?
Yep, contingent
In
on
the beginning.
the staff recommendations.
Passed unanimously. Okay. Is there any other business we have to cover today?
No.
No. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second. Second by Mr. Rudd. Adjourned.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor?
I do want it, actually. I even took the 3 days.
Thank you.